On the Road to Macstock with Marty Jencius of the Vision ProFiles podcast. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by Take Control Books, one of the very best sources of clear, concise information on not only Apple's various operating systems, but also key Apple and third-party utilities and more. Visit TakeControlBooks.com and start your library today. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this time on the Road to Macstock, we have another presenter who is going to be doing not just a session at Macstock Conference and Expo proper, but also one of the workshops the day before. And it's one that I'm really looking forward to because of his presentation from last year. Marty Jencius is here. Marty, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for sticking your head in the noose and doing not just a conference, but also a workshop.
Well, you know, I can't do these things. I can't attend these things without feeling like I can contribute in some way. And Mike Potter came to me and said, we've got this new idea for workshops. We'd like you to do a workshop on AI and how to use it based on the presentation from last year. And I proposed a presentation to him, and he said, "No, not that." So I then proposed a second presentation to him, and he went, "Yeah, that." So I'm happy to be part of it that way and be part of the group.
Well, as I said, you did a terrific presentation last year on AI. It feels like we have come so far for good and maybe not so good, you know, in just a year's time. So I have to ask, how are you going to approach the topic of AI for the workshop? Is it going to be practical? Is it going to be a little more soft and theoretical?
No, you know, for me, for workshops as a teacher, I do that for a living as a faculty member. I like to make it as hands-on as possible. So I'm hoping attendees will bring their devices. It'll be easier on a MacBook or in a full computer. And I'd like to take them through some things that they can do to use AI in an effective way to help their work productivity. I'm kind of going for 3 wow moments. If I can get 3 wow moments out of any presentation, then I feel like, or workshop, I feel like it's a success. And so it's going to be hands-on. I'll set up some links ahead of time that attendees can use during and after the workshop to work along on their own projects. But I'd really like to have a moment there where they get some direction and then they have some time to put together and use AI to advance whatever project they're working on or simple common tasks that we do on a daily basis in our workflow.
Marty, I love that. And I want to be real careful so we don't go too far down the road. But I will ask this. Since you're asking for people to bring their own devices, are there any services or anything they need to try to set up ahead of time, get accounts with, to make it easier for them to participate?
The evil overlord ChatGPT will be helpful because we're going to do a lot on LLMs and how you can use them carefully, ethically, and I'll give some examples. But basically, I'd like people to dive in with a project idea they have and then use the LLM to expand that idea and see what comes out at the end. I think last year's workshop, I gave some slides that took people through a process. I'd like them to bring their own project and work through that process during the workshop.
Okay. And so with ChatGPT, you can sign up for a free account. I mean, there are paid accounts
Yes.
for, I think, ChatGPT 4, but at least that's the last I remember. But I think 3 or 3.5 is available at no expense.
At no expense. And I wouldn't expect people to, you know, this might be their first venture into using it, and to ask them to make an investment the free account should be able to do the functions that we want to demonstrate during the workshop.
Got it. Okay. Terrific. Terrific. So there's just a little bit of homework before the workshop to get the most out of it. But even if you didn't, it just might be a couple extra minutes to do the sign up. So
correct.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Any particular type of projects? I mean, that's pretty wide open to just say, bring your own project. I mean, writing a book, promoting a new website, would those be examples of projects?
Those are perfect examples of projects. I'm going to take them through an iterative process to be able to get ideas out and get a structure out for the work. Last year, I demonstrated how to develop a self-paced learning instructional process for how to do Final Cut Pro with the resources. And that was a wow moment from last year. I'm hoping this year in the workshop, people will bring those kind of projects together. I mean, we're doing this in part using eCam, and I know Mike Potter is going to speak about eCam. For me, having a structure, having a self-learning module on how to learn the parts of eCam would be a project I might bring. In fact, I might bring that and demonstrate it. But people need to think in terms of some work productivity issue they need to do that using generative AI and LLMs, they can be able to come up with a better structure. I've used it for strategic planning in terms of getting ideas for strategic plans for organizations. And so any project is worth bringing to this workshop, and I'll take you through that iterative process to be able to develop it further.
I'm really intrigued by this. Not just your approach, and not just because of last year's presentation, but also just the fact that you are a professional educator. And so you probably approach things just a little bit differently than, someone who's just a tech person and wants to talk about LLM use. So the structure you're talking about to me is very appealing and very intriguing.
Yeah, that's what I've always found great about Macstock in general. Macstock does a couple of things because I see people present and they have new pieces of technology or new software. And it's like, okay, what's the price tag? And while I'm at the workshop, I'm generally buying that. So it does one thing, but it also gets me introduced to a lot of different ways of doing work, using the tech or using the software that people talk about. So that's what I want to be a part of. I mean, that's what I want to share with the workshop.
So that's the workshop, and that's on Friday. And so, folks, that is a little bit different sign-up, and we'll talk about some of the sign-up aspects in a minute. But if you want to partake of Marty's session, be sure that you are registered for that Friday workshop. Now, let's move to the actual Macstock Conference and Expo session that will be done. I'm not sure, Marty, what the schedule is, whether you're on Saturday or Sunday, but what are you going to be presenting once you take that stage?
My topic, or the title of my topic, is Apple Whisperer. And I think we're seen by many of the folks in the audience are seen by the family or the office's tech support. So folks will come to us with all sorts of questions. I've experienced this in my Mac user group. Our local Mac user group is aging out. And I have to say, and I want to mention Tom Piper was kind of the original inspiration for me to get involved in Mac user groups, and he will be sorely missed. But I get this now from my Mac user group, where every meeting that we have, it's a whole series of questions from individuals wanting to know how to do things. And from family members, it's even more difficult. My experience with family members is, as long as they don't live in my house, I can help them. But if they live in my house, it generally turns into a fight. Or, why are you so smug? So what I'm going to try and do with this presentation is it's going to resonate, I think, with a lot of attendees. And I think that's why Mike said, yeah, do that. I'll talk a little bit about the psychology that's necessary for learning new things. Because when I work with my Mac user group, they often feel as if they can't possibly learn this. So that's about their sense of self-efficacy, how much belief they have in themselves to be able to do it. They're smart folks. They've been working on Macs for years. Some of them, built their own Macs in the days past. So it's just their own sense of self and ability to feel like they can learn something and troubleshoot. And along with that, there are some places that I typically go to troubleshoot and get information. I almost titled this, "Have you tried Google yet?" Because that is, now my Mac user group has that mantra, and that when they ask something, they go, okay, I need to try Google first. But it's not only using that as a resource, but navigating all the stuff that comes back that I think is overwhelming for folks. What applies and what doesn't apply to their troubleshooting problem. So I'm going to present some characters, present some problems, and present some ideas about what the psychology is behind that reluctance and how you can teach them to have a greater sense of psychological agency, which is belief in themselves to solve problems.
First of all, I love your rule about helping. That's phenomenal. I've never heard that, and that is genius as far as I'm concerned, because that can go so wrong if they're still under the same roof. So yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's great. But I think you've really touched on something here, because I've had the very same experience. People they're still basically afraid a lot of times of computers, and they're afraid they might break something. It's harder than ever to break anything, and it never was easy to break anything in the first place, as long as you didn't drag it to the trash and empty the trash. And so, yep. and people gather up so much knowledge they don't even give themselves credit for.
Yeah, and I think with my group in particular, I'm dealing with a really aging population. In my Mac users group, they're reluctant to buy new hardware. So all their questions are on hardware and software that are 6 years old or 7 or 8 years old, that if I knew it, I've forgotten it at this point. So, teaching them ways that they can find solutions to their questions are real important. But the other thing is trying to get them to be part, so you're not the only person in the user group that does all the presentations, or takes all the requests for doing the training. I've tried ways of just not being able to be there, and then they have to solve the problem on their own. But I was struck by one gentleman in my group that said, well, when I quit my job or retired, we hadn't had PowerPoint yet. So I don't know how to create a PowerPoint presentation or a keynote. This is a bright guy. He is a real bright guy. And it's that lack of agency that I feel I can learn something new at this point, or I want to give the challenge to myself to learn something new. That is what we're fighting when we are cornered as the person that has all the answers.
I've never thought about it in exactly those terms. I always look at it as somebody just has stopped learning. They're content with, that's the word. They're content. They're content with what they can do. Once in a while, they run into something else they'd like to do a little better with, but it's something that maybe that happens to all of us. I don't know, but I've never found myself content with much of anything.
Well, I'm glad you're not content. That's because you have learned from your own experience to have some self-efficacy, knowing that you can solve these problems if you get to them. And that self-efficacy happens with each success that you have, Chuck, in solving a problem. the folks that we're dealing with us that turn to us for tech support haven't had that same sense of self-efficacy. So what we can do is work with them, walk them through the process that we would use individually, and let them get a sense of success by doing it themselves. And then you've got a different kind of learner. You have a person that's motivated around solving problems.
So we're having a little bit of bandwidth issue here. So I think we've got it corrected. I hope we've got it corrected. Marty, who do you see this session for? Is this for anyone that wants to help out the family members that aren't under their roof, or is this? And I ask the question because I don't want people to be too intimidated and think, well, I have to have technical expertise already to learn from this session.
No, you don't actually, and I think the and until you asked the question, I didn't think about this, but I think the learning principles that I talk about in this presentation and give as examples, you can apply to yourself. So the idea of thinking about some concepts that are basic for adult learners and also basic for people who have a low sense of agency in terms of learning might be things that you want to do yourself. I'm going to give away a little piece here. Teaching. One of the things that we know about people in terms of their self-efficacy around troubleshooting is that if they're given opportunities to teach, it improves their learning. It also improves their self-efficacy. So if you're working with a Mac user group and that guy who's always coming to you with questions after questions, and sometimes they're the same question every week, work with him or her to be able to get an opportunity to have them teach us something that will raise their self-efficacy around being better in terms of their own troubleshooting and problem solving. So you don't have to be surrounded by folks who want to use you as tech support to be able to gain some from the concepts that I talk about in improving self-efficacy around troubleshooting.
You've said so many things here, I think, that really resonate with me, that it's shocking to me how many people don't try Google first, or don't go to YouTube and do a search there, because those two seem to be the best places to learn to do anything from changing how to change a light bulb to how to cook a roast or something even more technical. So
Yep.
just the idea that you will be introducing that idea to them and hopefully hammering it home, I think will be really useful. And from there,
Yeah,
it just
and
gets better.
also just how to use it, because Chrome has this built-in AI assistant that when I give an extensive question and incorporate all the pieces in that I have in terms of troubleshooting, I get a really good. The AI generally has the solution for me. I don't have to go below and look at all the links to figure out which one is the one that works for me. So simple things like that.
I'm really looking forward to both these sessions because I feel like there's going to be a takeaway for anyone who has even a moderate interest in either topic. And even if they don't have an interest in it, come along, because it may open your eyes to something, ways to improve your own capabilities, both just through normal Google searches or normal what's the word I'm looking for, Marty? I can't find it, but just normal routine things. And then if you want to step up to the large language model thing and start experimenting with that, I think we're still in
Yeah.
a time too when people were afraid of that, and there's nothing to be afraid of.
Well, yeah, I think um, for those folks who are not adopters of AI, first of all, AI is being thrown on everything. It's become a branding and marketing. A year ago, I was trying to get all of the AI models that I could possibly think of for that presentation I gave a year ago. There's no way I could have done it in 45 minutes, anyways. It has grown exponentially to the point that there's no sense in talking about a particular AI app or version in the sense that everybody's calling what they're doing now in terms of applications as having AI functions in it. So, I'm going to avoid trying to give a long list of AI. I'll have that. I'll have it on the web, but I'm not going to spend the 90 minutes going through each one of those and focus on how you can use it functionally. For many routine work tasks that we have to do, it's a really valuable tool if you know how to ask the right prompts and what to do with it.
Once again, you got to do a little bit of learning, but it'll
Yep.
pay you off in a big way. So, folks, I want you to come to Macstock Conference and Expo in Crystal Lake in July and come to Marty's sessions. You're going to learn something. You're going to learn something from all the presenters you've heard here on the road to Macstock. Organizer Mike Potter has been kind enough to give us codes for the speakers so that you can save $30 off attending. Now, that's either the 2-day Macstock Conference and Expo sessions or the 3-day, which includes the Friday workshops. Marty doesn't have his code handy, but I will put it right here in the lower thirds for you. My code is MacVoices, so you can use that as well. Doesn't matter which code to use, because both of them will get you the same amount off. You can't stack them. Sorry about that. So please, Marty, I'll get your code from you after the show. I'll make sure it goes in the lower third and in the show notes. But whatever code you use, or just don't use a code, just go and sign up, Macstock Conference and Expo, because we're going to have a lot of fun. Hopefully you've gotten a sense of that here with some of the Road to Macstock things. And I want to apologize to Marty because we have had a little bandwidth issues and there's some things. He's been really good-natured about working through it. I hope you've been good-natured about watching it and listening. Marty, any last comments or thoughts on Macstock and why folks should attend?
You'll find everybody there warm and engaging, and it's really nice to be with a group of people who have the same level of passion around technology and Mac in particular. It's very comforting. There's plenty to learn. As I say, I've gone to all but one, and that was the first one I missed. And every time I walk away with a ton of notes of things that I want to check out and get into. And I wouldn't get it any other way. I would not get these kinds of ideas just by surfing the web myself. So I encourage you to come, enjoy the community, and you'll be coming back every year.
You used a word that I don't believe any other speaker has come up with just yet, but yet it is perfect, and that's passion. That everyone there has a passion for what we do, what they do, and that's what that creates that common ground. That it's not just you're not just a Mac user or an iPhone user or an Apple device user of some kind. You're passionate about it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be at Macstock. So
yeah, and you don't.
Perfect.
You're typically in your world. You're not surrounded by people who are as passionate about it as you are. So when you come to Macstock, you've got a room full of people who are just as passionate as you. Out in the world where they're not as passionate, they kind of go, "Yeah, that's interesting," like you're taking up space for them. But at this place, it's a part of everybody's love.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Come and join me. Come and join Marty. Come and join all our friends and even the friends we haven't met yet. And I hope that includes you. First time Macstock attendee or multiple time Macstock attendee. We want to see you there. Marty, I'll see you. Actually, as we record this, it's just a couple weeks. It's that we're really bearing down. So thank you so much for the time, and see you then. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. One last time, Macstock Conference and Expo. Join us. We're going to have a blast. I'll be back with more MacVoices soon. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, Consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.